Okay, so we're going to start the new Mishnah.
Yeah.
We're up to Utesomet Beis, 19b. That's what we're up to. And so the Mishnah says here like this, as follows. We read the Mishnah. Hakol kisherim likros es ha-Megilah. Everybody is fit to read the Megillah. Chutz, but there is an exception. Mecheresh. In this case, sometimes a cheresh means someone who cannot hear and cannot speak. A lot of times you can't speak because if you can't hear, then you don't know how to speak. But the person's defect in this case is not a mental defect. Sometimes there is a mental defect, like the case of a shoita. That would be somebody who is mentally not fit. A person who is mentally not fit is not obligated to hear the Megillah, and he can't read the Megillah. He can't read the Megillah to fulfill somebody else's obligation if he is not obligated himself. Same thing would be with a katan, a minor. A minor who is not obligated to do mitzvahs isn't fit to fulfill somebody else's mitzvah by reading the Megillah for them. But what about this cheresh? The discussion in the Gemara is going to go around this law of this cheresh over here. Cheresh is a person that can't hear. So, if he can't hear, it doesn't make him mentally unfit. Why can't he read the Megillah? So it almost seems like you have to hear what you're reading when you're saying the words. If you don't hear them, then it doesn't count. As we'll see, this is going to be the discussion in the Gemara. Well, what the Mishnah said is that everybody can read the Megillah, but you can't have a cheresh, chutz mecheresh, a person who can't hear. You can't have a shoita, and you can't have a minor. Now, the Gemara assumes, as we will see in a minute, the Gemara assumes that these three categories go together. Now, it doesn't make a difference between allowing you in the beginning or video. Let's leave it for the Gemara. I don't want to explain this now. But anyways, so the Mishnah says, everybody is fit to read the Megillah. With the exception one who can't hear, or a fool, or a minor. A fool over here, shoita, means a person who's mentally not capable and is exempt of mitzvahs. And then we say Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'kotten. Rabbi Yehuda says a minor is okay. Now, he's talking about a kotten who has already reached the level of education. We're not talking about a baby kotten. We're talking about somebody who can understand. Now, you have to understand, here we're talking about the Megillah. The mitzvah of reading the Megillah is only midrabanan. It's from the rabbis, they instituted it. It would be no question you can't have a katan fulfill you another obligation when it's a Torah obligation. In this case, the reason why he says that, why Rabbi Yehuda says that a katan, a minor, at least a minor shegil l'chinuch, who's already age of education, is okay, is because we're talking about the Kriyas HaMegillah. Okay, so this is what the Mishnah said. Rabbi Yehuda says a katan is allowed, and the Tanakama says no. Cheresh katan is not allowed. That's the Mishnah. So the Gemara, now we want to go back to what we said. The Gemara assumed, see, we're talking about everybody is kosher to read the Megillah. Well, this is talking about lechatchila. who is fit to read the Megillah? So we're saying these are the people that are fit, but not a cheresh and not a shoita, not a cut. But if I would ask you, what happens if they did read the Megillah? B'diavad, meaning after the fact. What do you think? This says everybody is fit to read the Megillah. These people are not fit to read the Megillah. But if I ask you, okay, they're not fit to read the Megillah, but they did read the Megillah. Did I fulfill my obligation, or must I go and hear it again? So, as far as a minor and a shoita goes, there's no question that even after the fact, it's no good, because the reason why they're no good is because they're not qualified to do it. So it doesn't make a difference. There would be no rationale to make a distinction between if you shouldn't do it and if you did it. You can't fulfill your mitzvah with a shoita or a minor who's not obligated to do the mitzvah. It makes no difference. Since cheresh, shoita, v'katan are written all together, the assumption is that this cheresh who can't hear is also, even after the fact, even though the way it's written in the Mishnah said these are kosher, they're not kosher to read it. So we have to say they're not kosher to read it. And even if they read it, it's not going to work. That's called b'diavad, after the fact. Even if they did it, it's no good, because it's written together with the shoita v'katan. The shoita v'katan, even b'diavad is no good. So here we're saying, we're stringent about it, and we're saying that even after the fact, if a person who cannot hear what he's saying, it wouldn't even help you after the fact if you did read it. It's not going to help you. So the Gemara says, this is the Gemara, we're going to the Gemara. Man Tana. Who is the Tana that says cheresh, that one who doesn't hear, the eved nami loy, even after the fact, we cannot fulfill the obligation? Who is this Tana? Because the Gemara assumes that that's what the Mishnah is saying. And again, as I explained to you, why are we assuming that? Because it's together with a shoita v'katan. A shoita v'katan is obvious that b'diavad you're not yotza. So it says a cheresh together means that even b'diavad you're not there. So the Gemara says, who is this Tana? Why is the Gemara questioning it? Because, as we'll see, there is a machlokes whether, if you didn't hear, whether you're or not. Omar Rab Matone, says Rab Matone or Rab Masna, he says Rab Yossi. The opinion in our Mishnah that says a cheresh shoita v'katan is not kosher, even b'diavad, is Rab Yossi. It goes like Rab Yossi. Rabbi Yossi holds, because we'll see in a minute, in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda holds b'diavad, it's okay. But since our Mishnah says that it's not good b'diavad, how do we know, like I said to you? Because it says together, cheresh shoita v'katan, it means even b'diavad is no good. So therefore, it has to go like Rabbi Yossi. It's not. So we're going to bring a proof from the din of the Shema to the din of the Megillah. Now, one can argue maybe Shema and the Megillah have different laws, but until we know that there's difference, we're going to assume that it's the same. They have the same halacha. So, what do we learn in the Mishnah? The Mishnah says, "Hakora es Shema." If you read the Shema, you're saying Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. You have to read it twice every day. The Shema. So you read the Shema. But below Hishmiya la'oznai, you did not have your ear hear. You didn't have your ear hear it You whispered it. You whispered it so low that you couldn't hear what you said. Or maybe you're just reading it with your eyes. You didn't. You don't say the words. The lo yishmiel ozna. You did not uh, hear. You did not verbalize. You didn't hear it. So he says yotza. What does mean yotza? He fulfilled an obligation. So that means now this first Tana is Rabbi Yehuda, even though there doesn't say a name here in the Mishnah, but we know it's Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says that what? That b'di'evet, if you read the Shema and you didn't hear, so it seems very clearly to begin with, even the Tanakama, Rabbi Yehuda holds that you have to listen. He says, it seems like it, because it says if you heard the Shema and lo yishmiel ozna, you're yotzer. That's what it seems like. Rabbi Yossi said, if you read the Shema, lo yotzer. So you're not fulfilled your obligation. So we're talking lo yotzer, Rashi di'evet hu, that means after the fact. So who is the opinion that holds that b'di'evet, if you didn't hear, you're not yotzer? That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. So again, our Mishnah, the Gemara assumes, doesn't allow the reading of the Megilah by a cheresh because he can't hear even b'di'evet. And the Gemara says, who is the opinion that holds that even b'di'evet you can't? You're not yotzer. The Gemara quotes that this is Rabbi Yossi, because just like by reading the Shema, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is yotzer. So Rabbi Yossi says lo yotzer. But now the Gemara challenges. The Gemara says, well, maybe the Mishnah wasn't talking about. Somehow we're not comfortable. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. Sometimes the Gemara is not. Somehow the Gemara is not comfortable that the Mishnah should go like Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara would rather that the Mishnah go also like Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara is not comfortable with Rabbi Yossi where they're going. So the Gemara is trying and is saying maybe it goes like Rabbi Yehuda, but when the Mishnah says that a cheresh is not qualified, it's not talking about b'di'evet, it's talking about lechatchila. Because even in this Mishnah that we quoted, Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanakama, he's the one that says yotza b'di'evet. So maybe when it says that a cheresh is not qualified, he's talking about lechatchila. The Mishnah is talking about lechatchila, and that Rabbi Yehuda agrees. So why do we have to say that the Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yossi? Why can't we say the Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yehuda? And when it says that a cheresh is talking about lechatchila, he can't read, but the evidence is okay. That would fit with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. What is the reason why we said the whole time that the Gemara thought that it's also after the fact? Because it's written cheresh shoyta v'katan together, and they're also b'di'evet. Look at the Gemara. Preg the Gemara. Umimai de Rabbi Yossi. How do you know that this is Rabbi Yossi? U'di'evet nami loy. So you're saying our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yossi, and a cheresh cannot read even b'di'evet. U'di'evet nami loy. So Rashi touches us. How do you know? Where do you know that when the Mishnah said besides a cheresh, afilu b'di'evet komar, he was talking about even after the cheresh read, it's still no good. But Rabbi Yossi, the apostle b'di'evet, and then you're saying that it goes like Rabbi Yossi, who says even b'di'evet, this apostle Rabbi Yossi Amar lo yotza by the Shema, and that's what we're talking about. Dilma Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe it's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is the Tana, the Kama, and Our Mishnah wasn't talking about b'diavad. When it says chutz mecheresh, means lechatchila. You can't have a cheresh read it. Because Rabbi Yehuda would also agree that lechatchila cheresh can be there. So how do you know our Mishnah is talking about b'diavad, and that's why you're saying that it goes like Rabbi Yossi? Maybe the Mishnah is talking about lechatchila cheresh can't read, and it goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, not according to Rabbi Yossi. Maybe we can say that Yehuda agrees that that lechatchila you shouldn't do it. Because the only case where we heard that is disagreeing, that's only in a case of the evet, because the case over here is that koida shema he did not. He's talking about after the fact. So he says yotza. But maybe lechatchila he thinks that you should read. So then the Mishnah that says chutz b'cheresh is also talking about lechatchila the cheresh cannot read. But b'diavad, it's okay. Lechatchila b'hoy kamach l'reviudim meited. No l'shemin l'polyga b'diavad. Or diavad shapir dam. Maybe the diavad is okay. So the Gemara assumed that when the Mishnah said the cheresh is not fit, it's talking about what? B'diavad is not fit. And the only one that would hold that b'diavad is not fit, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. That's what the Gemara says. It goes like Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara says, well, who tells you that the Mishnah is saying that even b'diavad the cheresh is no good? Mishnah never said that. Maybe the Mishnah is talking about lechatchila, but b'diavad it is good. So then it can go like Rabbi Yehuda. It doesn't have to go like Rabbi Yossi. So the Gemara says, Lo yisal kadaituk. This should not enter your mind. We can't say so. Why? For the reason that I mentioned before, the Katani, Cheresh Dumya D'Shoita V'Kotn. It's written Cheresh, which is similar to Shoita V'Kotn. Says them all together. Chutz Mecheresh Shoita V'Kotn. Talking about all together. So it's Cheresh, similar to Shoita V'Kotn. Ma Shoita V'Kotn. So just like a Shoita and a Kotn. The Evid Namiloi, even with the Evid is no good. And that's obvious that a Shoita V'Kotn is not good with the Evid. Because how could it be with the Evid okay? It's just not, he's not capable. They are Shoita and a Kotn are not fit. So Ma Shoita V'Kotn the Evid Namiloi, just like a Shoita and a Kotn. Even after the fact, it's not good. You cannot be Yotze the Megilah, even if they're already read. Av Cheresh, the Evid Namiloi. So also Cheresh is also not good with the Evid. So if you're trying to tell me that the Mishnah was only talking about lechatchila, you can't say that. Because since it says together with the Shoita and the Kotn, so just like when it says the Shoita and the Kotn are not fit, it means even with the Evid, therefore I'm going to say it means by the Cheresh, even with the Evid. Why must we say that, said Frank the Gemara? The Gemara says, why must we say that? Why can't we say Shoita v'Kotn is not good with the Evid, and the Cheresh is not good lechatchila, but with the Evid is okay. Maybe it still goes over. Frank the Gemara, with Vidilma, perhaps, each case it's its own. The case of Cheresh is only lechatchila, and the case of Shoita v'Kotn is even b'diavad. So how do we know? Just because they learn together, each one is judged by the halacha the way it is for themselves. So the cheresh is only pasul lechatchila. So it fits with Rabbi Yehuda. Why do we have to say that our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yosef? Okay, so far, what did the Gemara want to know? The Gemara wanted to know who said this statement. Which opinion does it go by? So the Gemara assumed lechatchila that this can only go according to Rabbi Yosef, because the Gemara assumed that this halacha is talking about b'diavad after the fact, that it's no good even after the fact. And the reason why the Gemara assumed that, because it's written together with Shaita and Cotton. But the Gemara is asking now, no, maybe Cheresh is only also lechatchila, although Shaita and Cotton are also even b'diavad. And then it goes like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Yosef. But the Gemara said, how could you possibly say that this first part of the Mishnah was said by Rabbi Yehuda? Because here you see clearly Rabbi Yehuda disagrees on the Tana. Okay, he disagrees on this halacha of cotton. So it says Rabbi Yehuda machshav b'cotton. So it cannot be that Rabbi Yehuda says this din chutz b'cheresh b'cotton. There's a technical. How could Rabbi Yehuda be arguing on himself? If Rabbi Yehuda is the one that said the halacha chutz b'cheresh b'cotton, and it means also lachatchila, only cheresh lachatchila. How could Rabbi Yehuda be disagreeing on himself? He said chutz b'cheresh b'cotton, and then Rabbi Yehuda said it couldn't be Rabbi Yehuda, because he says in the Sefer Rabbi Yehuda machshav b'cotton. Pray the Gemara me the Tani Sefer. Rabbi Yehuda machshav b'cotton. Since in the Sefer it says Rabbi Yehuda says that it's kosher by a cotton. Megilah the Reisha lav Rabbi Yehuda. So from this we can derive that the first part is not Rabbi Yehuda. So this has to go like Rabbi Yosef. You can't have this Rabbi Yehuda and this Rabbi Yehuda, and then Rabbi Yehuda is arguing on himself. How could that be? So it must be that it's Rabbi Yosef. So here it's not because the wording, and not because it says together with Shaita v'Katan. Here it's pashat a technical thing. You can't say that the first part is Rabbi Yehuda, so it has to be Rabbi Yosef. That's why we're saying even with the Evan. So how do we know that the Mishnah is talking about the Cheresh is possible with the Evan? It has to be Rabbi Yosef, because it can't be Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says in the Sefer is Machshav. So that has to be Rabbi Yosef. In the Sefer Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda Machshav b'Katan. Since it's Rabbi Yehuda Machshav b'Katan, so the Reishi cannot be like Rabbi Yehuda. Take the Gemara. No, the Gemara is not done yet. The Gemara is that V'dilma kul Rabbi Yehuda. Really, I will tell you, this whole entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. This Rabbi Yehuda here is not a dissenting opinion, but rather he's explaining. Like the Mishnah has to be explained. In other words, it's all Rabbi Yehuda. And Cheresh, only lechatchila. Shoyte v'kotn, even b'diavad. And then Rabbi Yehuda explains that which cotton is possible only if he's not at the age of education. But if he's at the age of education, so when we say cotton here, we're not talking about this cotton and this cotton. There's no disagreement between Rabbi Yehuda. He says it's cotton, it's kosher. He says it's not kosher. There's no disagreement over here. It's talking about a different cotton. This is talking about a cotton that is not the age of education. That's possible. And this is talking about a cotton which is the age of education. So therefore, the whole Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda. You don't have to say that the first part is Rabbi Yosef. It could also be Rabbi Yehuda. Look inside the Gemara. The Gemara V'dilma kula Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe it's all Rabbi Yehuda. Now this line in the Gemara, Rashi is not Goyris, so we're going to skip it. We're not going to do the line. The Gemara says, "V'dilma kula Rabbi Yehuda." Maybe it's all Rabbi Yehuda. Utrei gavne cotton kotanila. And he's telling you two cases of a cotton. We're talking about two cottons over here. It's all Rabbi Yehuda. It's not Rabbi Yehuda. It's not a dissenting opinion, but he is explaining about what kind of a cotton we're talking about over here. And there is missing in the Mishnah. And this is the way it's written. Hakol kshedim likris es Megilah. Everybody is kosher to read the Megilah, chutz mecheres shoyte v'kot, with the exception of a cheres shoyte v'kot. And I'm going to go skip the Rashi. We'll get back to the Rashi. B'med dvarim amurim. When do we say that a cotton is not allowed to? Is b'kotton shelo yagiel lechinuch. We're talking about a minor who hasn't reached the age of chinuch. Avol b'kotton shegiel lechinuch. But if it's a minor that has reached the age of education, then you can read it even lechatchila. Why should Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'kotton? Because Rabbi Yehuda says okay with a cotton. Basically, what the Gemara is trying to say, all this Mishnah is all Rabbi Yehuda. And there is just a different, the Mishnah, we have to put in some words into the Mishnah. In the beginning, it says that a cotton cannot read, and then we have to explain it. Why do we say a cotton cannot read? Because we're talking about a cotton that hasn't reached the age of education. But a cotton that has reached the age of education can read, because Rabbi Yehuda machshir b'cotton. So it's all going like Rabbi Yehuda. What are we benefiting? We're only benefiting from it that this din of cheresh is talking about only lechatchila. It goes like Rabbi Yehuda. We don't have to say that the din of cheresh is talking about b'di'evet, that even b'di'evet is possible, and that means that it goes like Rabbi Yossi. We're saying that it's only possible lechatchila, and it goes like Rabbi Yehuda. I mean, I don't know. You guys are following me or not? I mean, it's going back and forth. You with me? Okay. So, again, the Gemara. So the Gemara says, V'dilma kulo Rabbi Yehuda. So maybe the Gemara says the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. It's not a dissenting opinion here. It's not an opinion that's disagreeing, but rather it's two kinds of cotton. Today, gavni cotton kotanilo. We're talking about two types of minors. One minor is not kosher, and the other minor is kosher. And here you're actually missing. Chasuri mechasre means that you're actually like missing some words in the Mishnah. We got to sort of spice it up to make it. And this is what it's written. While everybody is fit to read the Megillah, there is an exception of a cheresh shoyte v'kot. And the cheresh is only lechatchila, the shoyte v'kot and b'di'evet. But this is, again, so let's do it in Rashi. Dilma Rabbi Yehuda today kam the cotton, the chsurim mechasre, hakol kshen liksa Megillah chut mecheresh shoyte v'kot. The cheresh is in its halacha, which is only lechatchila. Because we're going like Rabbi Yehuda who says b'diavad a cheresh is okay. V'hokidi, so the shoyta v'kotten is even b'diavad. Cheresh l'chatchila, v'shoyta, and the kotten afilu b'diavad. If it's when, what kind of a kotten? B'medvorim amurim, v'kotten shelo yigi l'chinuch. So this will only be by a kotten that has not reached the age of education. What does it mean, age? What is the age of education? So Rashi kigoin, as for example, ben teisha uben eser, if you're 9 or 10 years old. As the Gemara Yom in the second chapter, the last chapter, on that page, on page 82. But a minor that reached the age of education, then you can go read the Megilah. A minor, even Rabbi Yehuda says a minor is okay. Like I told in the Mishnah before, this allowance for a minor, even if he reached the age of education, would only be for the Megilah, because the Megilah is from the rabbis instituted, so they allowed a minor shigi l'chinuch. That would not apply to other, like reading in the Torah. That would not apply. This is specifically for the reading of the Megilah. Okay, so why did the Gemara do all this? To accomplish what? To tell us that the Mishnah can go like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, okay, L'mayu kibta. So how did you actually right now translate the Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda. So you went and you said that it goes like Rabbi Yehuda. V'di'evet, which means like this. We say now that a person who can't hear a cheresh, you're saying that Rabbi Yehuda only doesn't allow lechatchila. So when Rabbi Yehuda said, if you read the Shema and you didn't hear, you fulfilled your obligation, it's only after the fact. When you read the Shema, even Rabbi Yehuda holds that you should be able to hear. So you should hear. He only says after the fact. If you didn't hear, you fulfilled your obligation. That's how. So basically, if we say this, there is no difference if you don't hear the Shema between to begin with and after the fact. According to, I mean, there is a difference. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there is a difference between after the fact and lechatchila, and according to Rabbi Yossi, you're not yoytze even b'diavad. Right, the Gemara again. Ma yukimton. How did you interpret it? Ki Rabbi Yehuda, that the Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yehuda. B'diavad, and we're talking about after the fact. You're yoytze. Our Mishnah is also going to Rabbi Yehuda, and the Abbot, the Ma'ikar of Yehuda, Hashmat Lon, and you taught us. When did Rabbi Yehuda say, if you didn't pay attention, you didn't hear what you were saying, the Shema, you fulfilled your obligation? But the Abbot come of lechatchila. He said it after the fact and not lechatchila. So basically, not Rabbi Yossi and not Rabbi Yehuda will allow one to say the Shema or make a bracha or listen to the Megillah without being able to hear it. The only difference is what happened if you already did it. Then we have a machlokes. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's okay. According to Rabbi Yossi, it's not okay. But to begin with, everybody agrees that you must hear what you're saying. So in that case, the Gemara says, if this is the way you want to learn it, I have another problem. Because I will show you there is an opinion that says that you don't even have to hear what you're saying, even to begin with, not only after the fact. You can go ahead. Yehuda, who was the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, he learned as follows. He says, Cheresh Hamedaber. We're talking about a person who is deaf. He can speak, but he can't hear. Like, again, if he can't speak, he can't do the truma because he can't make the bracha. But if he's medaber, he can speak. He doesn't hear. He's talking about giving the truma. So you know the crops in the field, you have to give to the kohen. When you give it to the kohen, you make a bracha. So since this cheresh can make a bracha, so the fact that he can't hear, if he speaks but he can't hear, he can go ahead and be told to begin with. So this opinion of Yehuda, but Rabbi Shimon Pazi, the Gemara wants to know money. Who is he going to go like? Again, even though that he's required to make a bracha. When you separate the truma, you make a bracha because you're doing the mitzvah of giving the truma. So he needs to make a bracha. He can't do the bracha. And yet you're saying that he can go ahead and do that. So who says that? Doesn't anybody? Rabbi Yehuda. If it's Rabbi Yehuda, he goes like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda only says the Eved in lechatchila. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he can only do it after the fact, but lechatchila, you're not allowed to not make a bracha without hearing it. Because we say Rabbi Yehuda only allows me the Eved. So the Gemara proves from this, Rabbi Yossi the Eved Namalek. But in Rabbi Yossi, it's only also with the Eved is no good. So we don't have a Mad Omar. Since you said that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't, since you say that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow lechatchila, and over there we see a Mad Omar that says Yehuda Berei Rav Shima says that even lechatchila can make the bracha. So it's not going to go not like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Yossi. So he's basically asking, the Gemara is challenging, he's saying, after you explained that our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yehuda, and when it says that you read the Megilah, it's lechatchila you're not allowed to. Because it goes like Rabbi Yehuda, who says lechatchila you're not allowed to. But b'diavad you're yotzeh. If that's what Rabbi Yehuda holds, then who's going to hold that even lechatchila you're allowed to? Because it doesn't seem, and we see clearly that Rabbi Yehuda B'rei Rav Shimon Pazi holds that you can go and give truma even though you don't hear your bracha. So the Gemara is asking him back. Okay, so what would you like? Ve'elamai, Rabbi Yehuda. So what would you like? You would like that Rabbi Yehuda holds. So in order for Yehuda B'rei that Rabbi Shimon Pazi to have another Tana to go like, you would like that Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah allows it even lechatchila. My Rabbi Yehuda, mafil lechatchila. Rashi explains. Elamai bois lememer. What do you want to say? That Rabbi Yehuda the Omar beloy hishmiya lo'ozno yotza. Rabbi Yehuda who says that if you didn't hear your yotza, mafil lechatchila, he really holds that lechatchila you can go ahead. In order for you to be able to interpret that Rabbi Yehuda Berei Rav Shimon Pazi, that he goes like Rabbi Yehuda, so you have to say that Rabbi Yehuda is also talking about lechatchila, not only b'diavad. So how come Rabbi Yehuda only writes in the language of b'diavad? But it seems if you look in the Mishnah, it says Hakoyre es Shema lo yishmiya lo'oznoi yotzo. This seems like after the fact. If you read the Shema and you didn't pay, your ears didn't hear it, you fulfilled the obligation. Why, if Rabbi Yossi also holds that you are allowed to read the Shema without paying attention, without hearing it, why does he have to say it in a way that you didn't hear? Lo yishmiya lo, as he should say, go ahead and read the Shema without hearing it. Why is he only saying it after the fact? So the Gemara Rashi suggests, no, really, he holds that l'chatchila you're allowed to. You don't have to hear what you're saying. So why does it say in this case? Because the Gemara is trying to say, when Rabbi Yossi says you're not fulfilled the obligation, even after the fact, that's why when you have to give a scenario. So he's giving the scenario after the fact to tell you that Rabbi Yossi says, even for the Eved, you're not Yossi. Rabbi Yossi v'lo yotza. That's what Rashi says. So really we're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda holds that even l'chatchila you're yotza. Bahai deko mifalgi v'di'evet. So why does Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda argue in a case after the fact? Lo idiacha koiched Rabbi Yossi, to give you the strength of Rabbi Yossi. That Rabbi Yossi says you're not yotza even v'di'evet. It's not that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't distinguish between lechatchila and v'di'evet. He allows you even lechatchila. And the reason why he says that b'di'evet it's okay is because he wants to give a scenario in which he's going to disagree with Rabbi Yossi. That Rabbi Yossi who says lo yotza even b'di'evet, but he holds Rabbi Yehuda that even lechatchila you're allowed. So now the Gemara is saying, so what are you trying to accomplish? You're trying to accomplish that Rabbi Yehuda will allow even lechatchila without listening. If you can't hear it, that Rabbi Yehuda will allow this. That's what you're trying to accomplish, in order that Rabbi Yehuda Berei Rav Shimon Pazi should go the same as Rabbi Yehuda. But you're going to get the problem the other end, because that means that Rabbi Yehuda holds that even lechatchila you don't have to hear it with your ear. Rabbi Yossi holds even the Eved you're not yotza. So we have a brayse, but the brayse says there's a difference. Lo yivorich odom birchas hamozon beliber. A person should not do the grace after the meal in his heart. In other words, then it says v'imberich yotza. But if he did bench, he's yotza. So here you see in this brayse a clear distinction between lechatchila and b'di'evet. He says not to make the bracha in your heart, and then it says, but if you made the bracha, you fulfilled your obligation. So money, who's it going to go like? All the time money. Lo Rabbi Yehuda v'lo Rabbi Yossi. It doesn't go like Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda afil lechatchila. If we should say the way you're trying to say, so Rabbi Yehuda said afil lechatchila. Rabbi Yossi fil the Eved Naviloi. So who is this going to go like? The Gemara is basically saying, either way you're going to go, you're going to be stuck. In other words, we do know one opinion makes a difference now between one opinion outside of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, the Mishnah that we're arguing about. The other brises that the Gemara quoted over here. In one brisa, it says you can do it lechatchila. In another brisa, it says that there's a difference between lechatchila and b'diavad. So, in order to accommodate the brisa that says that you can do it lechatchila, which is Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi over there, so you went and changed Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah to fit that he's only allowing it, that he's even allowing it lechatchila. So that if you're going to accommodate that opinion, you're going to be stuck with the other opinion that says that there is a difference between lechatchila and b'diavad. So you haven't accomplished it. The Gemara answers, I'm sorry, it's a gedreite Gemara back and forth. I don't know how to, trying to think how to make it more clear. It goes back and forth and back and forth. And it's just trying to figure out what Rabbi Yehuda is saying and what the machlokes is. And the Gemara says no. L'olam Rabbi Yehuda, that we have to say goes taka like Rabbi Yehuda, and we're going to accommodate the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi. Afil lechatchila Rabbi Yehuda allows, just like Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi says, L'olam Rabbi Yehuda v'afil lechatchila machshir umasnisin has to go to Rabbi Yossi v'afil diavad loy, and our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yossi, who doesn't allow even b'diavad. Loy kashi. And it's not going to be a problem because how did they? The case when we say the day, so when it says before Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi says you can go ahead and make a bracha and be toirim lechatchila, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda himself. The toirim lechatchila, that's Rabbi Yehuda. Oh, and the second brayse we just quoted, the Birchas Hamazon, we say that there's a difference between lechatchila and b'diavad, is the Rabbi. That's of his master. This halacha, I just want to see for a second. Apparently the Gemara thinks that this is Rabbi. There's no name over here. But the Gemara says that this would be, Birchas Hamazon would be the Rabbi. Which means, Mishmoi shel Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Omra. He said it, he was a student of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. He said it in the name of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Shetzorich Lashmiya. So it's not Rabbi Yehuda's own opinion, but that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah. He says that you have to hear. And by Lishna, that language that he says, over there it says because you see the language, it says clearly, it says Birchas Hamazon, Lo yivorech od Birchas Hamazon b'ligoy, Im beirach yotza. So it's, I don't know what it says in Loshen. It says very clearly I'm just looking if it said anywhere with Ben Nazari, it doesn't say anywhere. I'm not sure where he's getting this from. But the Gemara said that's his Rebbe. Shetzorich lashmiya. V'hai lishna mashma l'chatchila avadi aved yotza. I don't understand why Rashi says hai lishna mashma l'chatchila. Oh, because in this brayso, the Gemara quotes the Tanya, because we learned in the brayso. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer Shum Rab Lezer ben Azariah, Hakoyre Shema Tzorich Sheishmi Loznan. When you read the Shema, you have to hear it by your ears. So from this he took the halacha that lechatchila you have to listen, but the evidence is okay. Shenemar Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So Shema, listen, Israel. So Hashmila Oznachamash Atamitz Mipi. You have to listen to what you say. So that is a Lashon Lechatchila. But Meir Eimer, he says, it's on your heart. It doesn't go. And you don't really need it. So now you see that the Meir says, so basically, we have now, up till this point in the Gemara, we have three opinions. We know Rabbi Yossi says, even b'di'evet, you're not Yossi, you have to hear it. The Gemara learns that Rabbi Yehuda, even l'chatchila is okay. Our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Meir l'chatchila, and then in his Rabbi Lezer, the Nazariah, he holds l'chatchila yes, and b'di'evet no. But the Gemara brings down in the Brayse the Meir Eimer, Asher neichem etzavchem elevecha, that achavanas le'vein ha'advarim. That you don't need to, even l'chatchila. So, hashlos lochi. So now that we have this Brayse, afilu teim Rabbi Yehuda kerabes v'ilei. Even if you're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda holds like his teacher, like Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah. So who will go? Is it a Meiri? And therefore also our Mishnah will go also like Rabbi Yehuda. He only says with the Eved lechatchila umasnisi nami lechatchila the apostle lecheresh. But Rabbi Yehuda goes like Rabbi Yehuda. And the one Birchas Hamazon also goes like Rabbi Yehuda. The Kashi Lachad Yehuda B'Rei Rav Shimon Pazi Moni Lei Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yossi. And the answer is Rabbi Meir the Machshir Lechatchila. I know that it's back and forth, and I don't know. Maybe we'll go it over again, or maybe we'll continue. But unfortunately, I run out of time. I got to go to Daven Mincha now. I hope it's clear somewhat. Needs another review. My apologies for not being able to give this over clearly.
You just made it short.
It goes back and forth, and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and it's just complicated. Okay, but I have to leave it over here because I got to go down to Daven. Everybody have a good evening in Mitzvah Shem. Next week, if this time works, we'll probably start. Let's start like 20 of instead of a quarter of. 20 to 7 instead of a quarter. 20 to 7. Make it 5 minutes earlier, so we'll finish 5 minutes earlier as well. Stay well, everyone.